Hello and welcome to episode 1 of The Glory. In this episode, we follow Moon Dong-eun as she moves into a new apartment in the city of Semyong. As she settles in, we see her past come back to haunt her in the form of pictures of those who have wronged her, including Park Yeon-jin. As she imagines Yeon-jin entering her home and not recognizing her, we see Moon's desire for revenge grow. She envisions herself attacking Yeon-jin with a stapler and promising to kill her. But what led Moon to this point? Tune in to find out as we follow her story of betrayal and seeking retribution. In 2004, a teenage Moon Dong-eun takes a stand against the bullying she has been experiencing at her high school. She reports the abuse to the police, hoping for justice. However, things do not go as planned. The police chief, Shin Young-jun, personally handles the case and makes a call to Yeon-jin's mother, promising to make the situation disappear. It is revealed that he and Yeon-jin's mother are old friends and he has even been assisting her with her divorce. Despite this, Young-jun asks Yeon-jin to stop bullying her classmates, and the other bullies are picked up by their guardians. But the support Moon hoped for does not come. A teacher from her school arrives at the police station and acts as her legal guardian, reprimanding her for going to the authorities over what he considers a small prank. Moon is left feeling even more alone and unsupported. The fallout from Moon Dong-eun's decision to report the bullying she experienced continues, with the school's vice principal already aware of the situation and the police chief feeling unhappy about it. Yeon-jin's mother is disappointed in her daughter, not for her actions as a bully, but for her inability to handle Dong-eun. The next day, things only get worse for Dong-eun when Yeon-jin burns her arm with a hair iron, leading to further torture, mockery, and sexual assault. When Dong-eun visits the school nurse seeking treatment for her wounds, the nurse becomes suspicious and asks how she was injured. Dong-eun lies and says she just needs hydrogen peroxide to clean the blood on her shirt. However, the nurse notices the burn marks on Dong-eun's arm and offers to help her report the abuse to a teacher. Yeon-jin, who is also at the infirmary and on the phone with her mother, reveals that she is the one who has been hurting Dong-eun. The nurse is shocked and decides to resign from her position a few days later. As the abuse and harassment continues, Dong-eun finds herself at a breaking point. She goes home to find Yeon-jin and her gang already inside, making themselves comfortable and drinking. Yeon-jin has also found Dong-eun's piggy bank and demands that she either dance for them or allow herself to be burned with a hand iron in order to get her savings back. They end up using the hand iron on her legs. Feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, Dong-eun considers taking her own life. Instead, she decides to drop out of school and lists her bullies as the reason for her transfer. The vice principal confronts the class homeroom teacher about the situation, but the teacher belittles Dong-eun and tells her to come back to school to collect her belongings. At the staff office, Dong-eun stands up for herself and confronts the teacher, who responds by slapping her repeatedly until the other teachers intervene. Meanwhile, Dong-eun's mother, who works at a rundown salon, receives a call about her daughter's situation. Dong-eun's mother has a meeting with Yeon-jin's mother and agrees to sign papers stating that Dong-eun is dropping out of school due to maladjustment in exchange for a financial settlement. Dong-eun discovers the betrayal and payout the next morning when her mother moves out of their home without telling her. To survive, Dong-eun takes on several low-paying jobs. She once again contemplates suicide, but ultimately decides to live and returns to school for one last time. She confronts Yeon-jin and promises that they will meet again, stating that Yeon-jin is her dream. Dong-eun then leaves school for good. Over the next few years, from 2006 to 2008, Dong-eun works hard to support herself while also studying from home. She is able to graduate high school and enroll in college. Despite her achievements, Dong-eun remains driven by her desire for revenge against Yeon-jin. In 2009, Dong-eun begins attending Yushin University of Education and continues to plot her revenge. In the present day, Dong-eun makes contact with Yeon-jin's daughter, Ha Yi-sol, and tells her about her history with Yeon-jin. Meanwhile, Yeonjin has become a weather presenter at a TV station. In 2012, episode 2 of The Glory opens with Moon Dong-eun at a cyber cafe researching her former bullies. She finds that Sun Myeonlo is living a reckless lifestyle, Lee Sa-rae is an artist who enjoys using drugs, Choi Hae-jong is a flight attendant, and John Jae-jun owns a store called Siesta. Dong-eun also discovers that Jae-jun is having an affair with Yeonjin, who is set to marry another man. Dong-eun meets with Gu Song-hee, a girl she met while working at a factory before going to college. Dong-eun reveals to Song-hee her plans for revenge against her former bullies, but Song-hee advises against it. Despite this, Song-hee agrees to help Dong-eun set up a new Instagram account to keep track of the gang. Dong-eun is determined to get her revenge, no matter what the cost. As she works as a tutor, Dong-eun struggles to deal with entitled and spoiled rich kids. One of her male clients tries to flirt with her, causing Dong-eun to end the session and terminate their contract. As she leaves the client's house, Dong-eun faints and is taken to the hospital. At the hospital, Dong-eun meets Ju Yeo-young, who tries to help her but she leaves before completing treatment. Yeo-young, an intern at the hospital, becomes concerned when the doctor returns with the results of Dong-eun's tests, showing that she is anemic and left without a prescription. He tracks down Dong-eun at her university. Initially, Yeo-young does not approach Dong-eun, but she becomes aware that he is watching her. When she confronts him about it, Yeo-young explains that he has been keeping an eye on her because she needs to take better care of her health. Meanwhile, Yeonjin gets married in a lavish ceremony, which Dong-eun secretly watches. Dong-eun and Yeo-young also grow closer, with Yeo-young offering to teach Dong-eun how to play the game Go. However, Dong-eun decides to cut ties with Yeo-young after learning the basics of the game. In 2015, Dong-eun passes the teacher's qualification exam on her second try, while Yeonjin has a baby. Fast forward to 2021, Yeonjin is happily married and living in Semyeong. To celebrate her birthday, her husband gifts her a new pair of green heels, similar to the ones Dong-eun was wearing when she first met Hae-sol. Yeonjin's husband is unhappy to hear that Hae-jong has been spreading rumors about Yeonjin's past, and Yeonjin promises to handle the situation. Yeonjin and Sa-rae meet with Hae-jong and put her in her place. Meanwhile, Dong-eun is collecting items from her enemies and makes an interesting discovery. In 2022, Yeonjin is still working as a weather broadcaster while Yeo-young misses playing Go with Dong-eun. Meanwhile, Dong-eun runs into Myeonlo while shopping at the Siesta store. She tells him that she has been thinking about him recently, and he offers to buy the shoes Dong-eun was trying on and invites her for a drink. Myeonlo brags about how he essentially runs the shop, even though it belongs to Jae-jun and he is just an errand boy. Dong-eun decides to have coffee with him instead. As they talk, Myeonlo receives a message from one of the workers, informing him that Jae-jun is wondering why he has not completed the errand he was given. Dong-eun mocks Myeonlo for being Jae-jun's little errand boy and tells him that there is a way for him to stop being Jae-jun's errand boy. Later, Dong-eun meets teacher Kim Jong-moon's son. Teacher Kim Jong-moon is now old and is currently at a nursing home. Their talk is interrupted by a call from a realtor at Semyeong Real Estate. She informs Dong-eun that there is a vacancy in the apartment she was looking to rent. Dong-eun is spotted by an employee who works for Yeonjin as she secretly tries to steal their trash. She asks Dong-eun to kill her husband in return for her silence about the garbage. Episode 3 of The Glory begins with Dong-eun driving to Kang Hyun-nam's home. Hyun-nam is being physically abused by her husband, and her daughter is considering killing him to protect her mother. Meanwhile, Yeo-young is working as a doctor and has found professional success, but he is missing Dong-eun. He recalls their last conversation, in which Dong-eun did not understand the problems Yeo-young faced as someone who was raised with privilege. Dong-eun meets with Hyun-nam and hires her to assist with her revenge plans. She asks Hyun-nam to learn how to drive and offers to tutor Hyun-nam's daughter. Over the following weeks, Hyun-nam attends driving school and Dong-eun tutors her daughter on weekend train rides. After obtaining her driver's license, Hyun-nam is excited to show it to Dong-eun. Dong-eun teaches her how to use a digital camera and gives her a car as a gift. They set up a schedule for exchanging the information they gather about the gang, with Hyun-nam typically leaving the information in the car for Dong-eun to retrieve later. Dong-eun asks Hyun-nam to keep an eye on the gang and report back to her. Hyun-nam takes photos of Yeon-jin leaving an eye clinic with her daughter. Dong-eun realizes that Ha Yi-sol is colorblind, just like Jae-jun, and suspects that he may be the father of Yeon-jin's child. Yeon-jin is trying to hide Ha Yi-sol's colorblindness from her husband, Ha Do-young. Meanwhile, Do-young plays a game of Go with an acquaintance, Mr. Choi, and discusses business. Coincidentally, Dong-eun is also playing Go at the same place and is beating her opponent in an impressive game. Do-young is fascinated by Dong-eun's strategy and begins visiting the Go club in hopes of running into her again. Meanwhile, Hyun-nam follows Hae-jong and sees her meeting with Myeon-no. She asks Myeon-no to help her investigate her latest target. One day, Dong-eun runs into Yeo-young on the train while tutoring Hyun-nam's daughter. They catch up and discuss what they have been up to recently. Yeo-young tells Dong-eun that playing Go with her helped him during the darkest period of his life and thanks her, giving her his contact card. Hyun-nam's investigation gives Dong-eun the opportunity to gain leverage over Chairman Kim Shin-tae and use his secrets to blackmail him into hiring her as a teacher for Ha Yi-sol's grade. Dong-eun visits teacher Kim Jong-moon at his home and, at first, he does not recognize her. His son, Soo-han, arrives and is shocked to learn that Dong-eun knows his father. Later, Dong-eun meets with Myeon-no at the rooftop of an abandoned building. She reminds him of another girl they used to bully before her, So-hee, who was pushed off the rooftop and killed. Myeon-no denies knowing about the murder, and Dong-eun offers to help him get money from the real murderer in exchange for the name of So-hee's killer. Myeon-no agrees and gives Dong-eun hair strands he collected from Jae-jun. Dong-eun promises to call him after she confirms that the hair belongs to Jae-jun. In a flashback to 2012, Dong-eun recalls the gang bullying her in the gym and all the people who knew but did nothing. In 2022, Yeon-jin loses her temper after an award ceremony and slaps Dong-eun during a confrontation. Dong-eun remains calm and Jae-jun tries to calm Yeon-jin down. Dong-eun leaves the gym after congratulating Yeon-jin and promises to watch her broadcast. Meanwhile, Myeon-no finally reports to work and Jae-jun asks him to find out what Dong-eun has been up to. Myeon-no asks him if he slept with Dong-eun in the past, which annoys Jae-jun. Elsewhere, Yeo-young leaves the hospital to attend his late father's death anniversary. It is revealed that his father was killed by a patient he saved. Meanwhile, the group of bullies who had tormented Dong-eun were still shaken from their last encounter with her. Sa-ra suggested that Myeon-no investigate Dong-eun, but he was unwilling to do so without compensation. Ha Yi-sol called her mother to inform her that she had spilled milk on her shoes at school and was now barefoot. Yeon-jin was shocked to learn that Dong-eun was now the new homeroom teacher at the school. Chairman Kim Shin-tae introduced Dong-eun to the school faculty, and one of the teachers assumed that she was the chairman's mistress. Dong-eun introduced herself to her class and set a few rules, making it clear that she would not tolerate bullying and that the wealth of her students' parents would not be a factor in her class. Yeon-jin rushed to the school to confront Dong-eun. Dong-eun told her that their meeting was no coincidence and reminded Yeon-jin of the words she had spoken to her years before, "I am your dream." Yeon-jin scoffed at the notion that someone like Dong-eun could ruin her and told her to do her best. As Dong-eun left the classroom, she received a message informing her of the death of teacher Kim Jong-moon. In a flashback, we see what had happened when Dong-eun visited him. His son Soo-han had come home excited about having passed the first part of the school inspector exams. Teacher Kim Jong-moon recognized Dong-eun and began attacking her with the flowers she had brought him. His son held him back and asked Dong-eun what the problem was. Dong-eun told him that she had decided to confront his father before he posted on the official forum about what he had done to her when she was 17 years old. Soo-han decided to use his father's asthma condition to kill him and make it look like an accident. He told his father that if the rumors about his past started spreading, their reputation would be tarnished. Soo-han was so close to achieving his dreams, and he couldn't let his father's past get in the way. In order to avoid a life of shame, his father needed to die. Yeon-jin warned Dong-eun to stay away from her daughter, but Dong-eun informed her that she was the one in control now. She told Yeon-jin that if she transferred Ha Yi-sol to another school, she would do the same. She vowed to make Yeon-jin suffer by using her daughter and claimed that there was nothing Yeon-jin could do to stop her. Meanwhile, Hyun-nam followed Hae-jong, and Dong-eun met with her old-school nurse. The nurse had saved photos of the burns Dong-eun had suffered at the hands of the bully group, and she offered her support to Dong-eun in her quest for revenge. Dong-eun also met with Myung-oh, who told her that he was fully on board with her plan. He provided her with Sa-ra's drug account book and information on the man Hae-jong was currently obsessed with. He asked Dong-eun about the results of Jae-jun's DNA test, and Dong-eun revealed that it had matched and that Jae-jun had a child, but that this was a card she intended to play at the right moment. Dong-eun sent Myung-oh to a mortuary, and he believed that the information he could gather there would be profitable. He went to the mortuary and was told by the attendant that they were still holding the body of So-hee, whose parents believed she had not committed suicide and therefore refused to bury her. The attendant asked Myung-oh to speak with the family and try to obtain their consent to release the body. Upon learning that Dong-eun was now teaching her daughter, Yeon-jin became nervous that her daughter would suffer the same torture she had inflicted on Dong-eun. Meanwhile, Dong-eun returned to the Go Club and met Ha Do-young, Yeon-jin's husband. He had been visiting the club in the hope of seeing Dong-eun again, and the two played a game of Go together. Do-young tried to learn more about Dong-eun, but she kept her answers short and mysterious, focusing on the game. She won the first round, and Do-young offered to play a second round for 50,000 won. Dong-eun accepted his offer. The fifth episode of The Glory began with Hyun-nam's surveillance of Yeon-jin's mother as she left the shaman's place. Meanwhile, Do-young saw Dong-eun eating at a convenience store after their Go game and stopped to talk to her. He asked her a series of questions, trying to get to know her better, but Dong-eun answered ambiguously. He gave her his contact card and asked her to play Go with him again. Hyun-nam told Dong-eun that, based on her surveillance of the bully group, she believed Hae-jong was the easiest to predict and suggested that they could steal her phone. She asked to meet Dong-eun in person and shared the information she had gathered about Yeon-jin's mother. Dong-eun asked Hyun-nam to be careful, especially when following Shin Young-jun, the police chief. She didn't want Hyun-nam to put herself at risk. Hyun-nam promised to be careful, and so far, she had done a good job. Meanwhile, Yeon-jin visited the principal to discuss Dong-eun's job as a teacher at the school. She was shocked to learn that Dong-eun knew the chairman personally. She asked the principal if she could take a look at Dong-eun's resume, and the principal, a bit coyly, agreed to let her sneak a peek. After her meeting with the principal, Yeon-jin went to observe Dong-eun's class and found her teaching. Ha Yi-sol was having trouble with coloring her drawings properly due to being colorblind, and Dong-eun tried to make her feel better without scolding her. After the class, Yeon-jin offered to pay money and told Dong-eun that she was not capable of a sincere apology. Dong-eun told her that she was not looking for an apology. Instead, she would teach Yeon-jin about God's fury. Yeon-jin accused Dong-eun of holding her daughter hostage, but Dong-eun maintained that she had done no harm to the child other than being a supportive teacher. She reminded Yeon-jin that there were so many ways she could make Ha Yi-sol's life difficult as her teacher, given her color blindness. Dong-eun warned Yeon-jin not to test her on how far she was willing to go to make her suffer, and vowed to slowly suffocate her until she understood what it had felt like for Dong-eun. She assured Yeon-jin that they would die together, and expressed excitement at the prospect. On the other side of town, Jae-jun was unable to reach Myung-oh and received a package after his massage appointment, which was most likely the DNA test result. Yeon-jin visited Do-young at his office and asked if they should consider sending their daughter abroad to study. Do-young found the suggestion strange, and Yeonjin explained that she was worried that the new homeroom teacher was crazy. She asked if Do-young could set up a meeting for her with Chairman Kim. Do-young asked what was wrong with the teacher and why she needed to involve the chairman. Yeonjin told him not to worry about it and claimed that she might be overreacting due to being tired. Yeonjin then left to meet with her mother and a private detective. She asked the detective to investigate Dong-eun and find out everything he could about her. On the other hand, Yeo-young attended his therapy session and later met a patient who worked as a teacher. He was fascinated by her work and asked her questions about her profession. Hyun-nam found an opportunity to steal Hae-jong's phone and replaced it with a similar one before Hae-jong left for Shanghai. Hae-jong discovered that her phone had been switched while she was already in Shanghai. Hyun-nam took the phone to Dong-eun and even shared the password she had seen Hae-jong use. Dong-eun visited the church run by Sa-ra's father and confronted Sa-ra. She gave Sa-ra an empty black bag and gave her 15 days to fill it with dollars. Sa-ra told Dong-eun that such a request was against the law, but Dong-eun grabbed her by the hair and told her that she was just getting started with her. Dong-eun then left and visited Jyoti Park, where Yeo-young had taught her how to play Go. She began reading the messages that he had sent, but she never replied to, and decided to text him back. Yeo-young was shocked to receive a text from her. He immediately calls her and asks to meet to answer her question about a certain drug. They meet for coffee and head over to Jyoti Park. Yeo-young tells her that the drug is similar to Viagra and asks if she is dating a man who needs Viagra. Yeo-young tells her that she should date a man who doesn't have erectile dysfunction. Dong-eun tells him that he is wrong, she only sent the message as an excuse to see him. She actually wanted to apologize to him if she was ever rude to him or hurt him. Yeo-young tells her that her apology sounds like a farewell and is worried that she wants to cut all contact with him. He asks if she has never been curious about him. She answers that he is not her type. Yeo-young tells her that she can do whatever she wants to do, but she can also date him and promises to make her happy. Dong-eun laughs and tells him that she is not looking for a prince but an executioner to help her with the hunt. The next day, Dong-eun met with Myung-oh and asked him about what he had discovered at the hospital. He told her that she must be onto something and asked her to tell him the name of the person who killed So-hee. He promised to threaten the rest of the gang before delivering them to her, and Dong-eun whispered something to him in response. In the meantime, Sa-ra told the gang about Dong-eun threatening her and asking for money. Yeonjin was certain that Dong-eun was not motivated by money and worried about what she was planning to do to the gang. Jae-jun seemed less concerned about Dong-eun's revenge plan and kept asking about the well-being of Hae-sol. Myung-oh booked a one-way ticket to Vladivostok and called all the members of the gang in Do-young, setting a date to meet with each of them separately. The episode ended with someone hitting Myung-oh over the head with a blunt object, and Dong-eun placing a bloody elastoplast bandage on a piece of paper. The words are written on the paper translated to "I am dead." In episode 6 of The Glory, Yeo-young meets with his mother for lunch and informs her that he has decided to resign from his job and open his own practice in Semyeong, where the girl he likes lives. Meanwhile, Yeonjin and her mother visit a shaman in an effort to resolve the issue with Dong-eun. Yeonjin's mother suggests contacting someone at the Ministry of Education to get Dong-eun fired, but Yeonjin is afraid that this will only provoke Dong-eun and lead to Yeonjin's own secrets being revealed. Yeonjin's mother advises her to find a solution in the present rather than dwelling on the past. Meanwhile, Dong-eun receives an urgent message from Hyun-nam asking her to call as soon as possible. When they meet, Hyun-nam expresses concern about being unable to find Myung-oh and fears he may have switched sides. Dong-eun suggests that it's also possible that he may be dead, but Hyun-nam asks Dong-eun if she was the one who killed him, stating that she wants to be prepared to protect Dong-eun if needed. Dong-eun tells Hyun-nam that even if she did kill Myung-oh, Hyun-nam doesn't need to know. Dong-eun warns Hyun-nam that they are getting too close and reminds her that they should only stick to their contract. Jae-jun returns home after being away for a while and discovers that Myung-oh has stolen all of his luxury clothes and watches. He tries calling Myung-oh, but there is no answer. Yeonjin meets with the police chief to ask for help finding someone's private information, but he tells her it is not an easy task. Yeonjin receives a call from Jae-jun but ignores it. Meanwhile, Dong-eun asks Gu Sung-hee for help in finding out if Myung-oh left the country as planned, but they learn that he never left. Dong-eun decides to target Do-young in her plan. Do-young finishes a project creating a large-scale Go board game on a rooftop, unaware of Dong-eun's plans. Sa-ra is having trouble getting drugs from Myung-oh, who is not responding to her messages. Hae-jong is also searching for Myung-oh after receiving a letter from him threatening to expose her secrets. Hae-jong is about to get married to a chaebol and wants to make sure Myung-oh doesn't ruin it. While going about her day, Dong-eun receives a call from Hyun-nam who tells her that there is a car following her. Dong-eun is surprised and initially assumes that Hyun-nam is the one following her, but Hyun-nam explains that she was actually tailing Jae-jun, who was at the school when she saw the people following Dong-eun. Dong-eun gets into a minor accident with the men in the car and agrees to pay for the damages in cash. The driver asks for Dong-eun's phone number and tells her to meet him with the cash when he calls her. After the incident, Dong-eun meets with Hyun-nam and apologizes for not trusting her. Jae-jun asks Hae-jong if she knows Hae-sol's birthday, saying he believes he is her biological father. Hae-jong thinks Jae-jun is crazy and suggests that Yeonjin may be sleeping with other men besides him. Do-young receives a letter from Myung-oh and goes to Jae-jun's golf club to ask where he can find Myung-oh. Jae-jun tells Do-young that he also received a letter from Myung-oh threatening him. They exchange contact information and agree to let each other know if they find Myung-oh. During their conversation, Do-young notices that Jae-jun smokes the same brand of cigarettes as his wife. After their interaction, Jae-jun leaves a message for Myung-oh on his phone threatening to kill him if Hae-sol's true identity is the motive behind his threats. After getting the results of a DNA test, Jae-jun learns that Hae-sol is his biological daughter. Meanwhile, Yeo-young moves to Semyong and rents a house. He texts Dong-eun, mentioning that they never properly finished their Go match. At the time, Dong-eun is at a mechanic shop getting her car fixed and is reminded of being burned when she sees people cooking pork on a pan. She has an anxiety attack and decides to visit Yeo-young to tell him about her plans for revenge. Initially worried about the impact of the revenge, Yeo-young changes his mind and offers to help Dong-eun by joining her in the hunt and serving as her executioner when he sees her scars. In episode 7 of The Glory, Yeo-young finishes preparing for his new clinic and remembers the conversation he had with Dong-eun about her interest in Do-young and her desire to make sure Yeonjin is alone by the time she finishes her revenge. Yeo-young gives Dong-eun the passcode to his apartment and asks her to visit and leave a move on the Go board when she wants to let him know she is okay. Do-young looks through old photos and asks Yeonjin about her relationship with Jae-jun and Myung-oh. Yeonjin says she is not close with Myung-oh and asks if he was being threatened. Do-young finds Yeonjin's response suspicious and mentions that all her friends had the same response when he brought up Myung-oh. Yeonjin checks the locations Myung-oh recently visited and sees that he went to Jae-jun's golf club. Hyun-nam continues her investigation and visits the shaman Yeonjin and her mother usually go to, but doesn't find any important information. She later helps Dong-eun find out that the men who were following her and trying to extort money work for the police chief, who is close to Yeonjin's family. Dong-eun starts to wonder if they are connected to Myung-oh's disappearance and tells Hyun-nam that it would be in their best interest to find his body first if he is truly dead. Dong-eun remembers her deal with Myung-oh, who was supposed to get a confession from Yeonjin about killing So-hee. Dong-eun believes that Yeonjin may have killed Myung-oh after he threatened to reveal that she is So-hee's murderer. Yeo-young's mother is left to handle the daily operations at the hospital after Yeo-young leaves, and is shocked to receive a letter from the man who killed her husband. The man is currently in prison and has been sending Yeo-young letters taunting him about how much he enjoyed killing his father. Yeo-young still carries a lot of pain and anger over his father's death and occasionally imagines himself killing the killer. Yeo-young had been going to therapy for this, but stops after moving to Semyong. Dong-eun meets with Sa-are at her father's church to collect the money she demanded. Sa-are tells Dong-eun that she has God on her side because she has repented, but Dong-eun mocks her and says she hopes Sa-are goes to heaven because she will make her life a living hell. Dong-eun takes Hyunam to take an assessment test and tells her that she plans to use the money from Sa-are to send Hyunam to study in the US, as she can no longer tutor her. Do-young learns from Hae-sol that Yeon-jin went to high school with her teacher and becomes more curious to find out more about the teacher. He promises Hae-sol that he will attend the daddy's event coming up in her class. Jae-jun is also curious about Do-young and tries to gather information from Hae-jong during her wedding dress fitting. Hae-jong tells him that he is a nice son of a bitch and you need to look closely to know him. Hae-jong is also worried about the damaging photos she received from Myung-oh and decides to check his apartment, where she runs into Sa-are, who had the same idea. Sa-are finds her drugs, but Hae-jong doesn't get any answers. Sa-are shows her a plane ticket and tells her that Myung-oh planned to leave, but he is now missing. They report this information to Yeon-jin, who advises them to report the matter to the police if they are worried about him. Yeon-jin is also worried about what Do-young and Jae-jun talked about and tries to reach him, but he is not responding to her calls or messages. She decides to check his place, but he is not there either. After several attempts, he finally picks up her call and agrees to meet with her later. Jae-jun visits Hae-sol's school and promises to protect her. He calls his lawyer and asks to meet to discuss how he can regain his rights as Hae-sol's father. The lawyer explains that he has no chance of being recognized as the father unless the couple in question gets a divorce. Jae-jun meets with Yeon-jin and chokes her in anger as he confronts her about Hae-sol. Yeon-jin is shocked but manages to calm him down by distracting him with sex. As Jae-jun tries to get his daughter back, Hae-jong tries to win over her future mother-in-law, but this proves to be difficult as the woman is acquainted with Dong-eun and had hoped that she would be her daughter-in-law instead of Hae-jong. Hae-jong realizes she is in trouble and asks to talk with Dong-eun. The daddy's event in Hae-sol's class takes place, and both Do-young and Jae-jun attend. Jae-jun pretends to be there to visit Dong-eun, whom he refers to as an old high school friend. Do-young is shocked to see that Dong-eun is the teacher in question. Jae-jun's snide comments also do not help the situation. In episode 8 of The Glory, Hae-jong approaches Dong-eun and pleads with her not to interfere with her wedding plans. Dong-eun reveals that she has discovered information about Hae-jong by using her phone and orders her to report Myung-oh as missing. Meanwhile, Do-young and Jae-jun get into a confrontation when Do-young finds him watching over Hae-sol. Jae-jun reveals that he no longer wants to find Myung-oh because he has learned the reason he sent a letter, which may have led Do-young to realize that he is not Hae-sol's biological father. Dong-eun later meets Jae-jun at the school and is reminded of how he and Myung-oh sexually harassed her in the past. She warns him to stay away from Hae-sol and tells him that if he wants to protect Hae-sol, he should consider her his ally. She hands him Hae-sol's coloring, which proves that she inherited his color blindness, and leaves. Back at home, Hae-sol tells her mother about a dad event at school, and Yeon-jin becomes worried when she learns that Jae-jun showed up as well. Meanwhile, Do-young meets with Hae-jong in secret and asks her about the relationship between Yeon-jin and Dong-eun. Hae-jong tells him that Yeon-jin severely bullied Dong-eun in high school, causing Dong-eun to drop out. She asks Do-young to tell Dong-eun that Hae-jong was the one who told him about what happened and implies that Dong-eun is betting her life on something. Later, Do-young coincidentally meets with Yeo-young at a Go match location that he built and plays a game with him. Yeo-young tells Do-young that he recently moved to town seeking revenge for someone and reveals that he is a surgeon. He reports his meeting with Do-young to Dong-eun, describing Do-young as calm and collected. Do-young goes home and finds Yeon-jin waiting for him. He asks her about her relationship with Dong-eun and Yeon-jin denies any wrongdoing and asks him to trust her. She warns him not to open Pandora's box and says she will ensure their daughter's safety and keep the box closed. The next day, Yeon-jin meets with Jae-jun, who asks her if she loves Do-young. She admits that she does and is not ready for a divorce. Jae-jun points out that Do-young may not accept her once he learns the truth about her. Later, Yeon-jin receives a call from Police Chief Shin Young-jun, who asks her to meet with him. During the meeting, Young-jun tells her that, based on his private investigation, Dong-eun is a model citizen. Yeon-jin asks about Dong-eun's mother and seems to be hoping to use her against Dong-eun. It is revealed that the police chief has men watching Dong-eun's mother. Yeo-young is also curious about Dong-eun's mother, but Dong-eun does not provide any details. The scene cuts to Yeo-young's mother visiting the killer in prison and warning him not to send any more letters taunting her son. Hae-jong eventually reports Myung-oh as missing, which annoys the gang. Sa-rae becomes angry, fearing that Hae-jong may have put her drug use on the police's radar during their investigation. She threatens to kill Hae-jong if the police start looking into her. Meanwhile, Dong-eun tells Hyun-nam to get a passport for her daughter so she can be away studying while Dong-eun carries out her plan to kill her husband. She tells Hyun-nam that she will lose her child if they go through with the plan and asks her if she wants to stop. Dong-eun later receives a call from Do-young asking her to meet. They meet and Do-young tells her that he wants to hear her side of the story first because she is the victim. Dong-eun admits that she approached him on purpose and tells him where she lives. Meanwhile, Yeon-jin discovers that Dong-eun is living in an apartment right outside her house. She pays a man a large sum of money to break into the apartment and is shocked to see photos of the bully gang and people close to her on the wall. Yeon-jin begins to think that she should have not only bullied Dong-eun, but killed her as well. The 9th installment of The Glory begins with a flashback of Myung-oh booking his flight on October 17th and calling Do-young. However, as Do-young is difficult to reach, his message was passed on to Do-young's secretary, which piqued Do-young's curiosity since Myung-oh is one of Yeon-jin's friends. The following day, on October 18th, Myung-oh contacted Sa-rae and requested a meeting to exchange dollars and talk. However, Sa-rae declined the invitation until Myung-oh mentioned an embarrassing video of So-hee. Sa-rae revealed that she was present on the night So-hee was killed but did not contact the police because she was under the influence of drugs. She abruptly ended the call. Meanwhile, Myung-oh was at Jae-jun's house, stealing his clothes. He then contacted Jae-jun to blackmail him with his knowledge of Jae-jun's dubious business dealings, including the current embezzlement in his company, and inquired about So-hee. He demanded money through his crypto bank and ended the call. As he left Jae-jun's place, Myung-oh called Hae-jong and implored her to leave for Russia with him. He professed his love for her and expressed his desire to save her from Dong-eun's revenge scheme. However, Hae-jong was not willing to abandon her wealthy fiancé for Myung-oh. Later on, October 19th, Myung-oh threatened to expose Dong-eun to Yeon-jin if she did not provide him with the name tag So-hee had on the night she died. However, Dong-eun was unfazed by his threats and dared him to do as he pleased before ending the call. In the present day, Do-young and Yeon-jin meet at Dong-eun's house. Yeon-jin is surprised to see her husband there and wonders if Dong-eun made him an offer. Do-young questions Yeon-jin about why she bullied Dong-eun, hoping for a valid excuse. Yeon-jin admits that she bullied Dong-eun simply because she did not like her. As Yeon-jin drops her cigarette and leaves, Dong-eun watches the feed on her phone and notices Do-young's politeness in removing his shoes before entering. Meanwhile, Do-young stays behind and sees photos of Jae-jun with Hae-sol. Yeo-young goes to the morgue to examine So-hee's body but is told that his father had ordered it to be stored in the freezer, which surprises him as he realizes his father's involvement in the case. Meanwhile, Dong-eun, who cannot return to her house, stays with Yeo-young. After leaving the hospital, Yeo-young brings some bedding home and is thrilled to have Dong-eun living with him. On the other hand, Sa-rae is anxious about the police requesting to interview her. She contacts Jae-jun, who is about to meet with the police and remains composed. Sare is distressed and experiencing withdrawal symptoms. She cannot recall whether she murdered Myung-oh or the last time they saw each other. She wonders if she killed him and whether admitting to drug use would be a valid defense for possible murder. Jae-jun disconnects the call and greets the detective. Jae-jun informs the detective that Myung-oh did not show up for work and he was planning to terminate his employment. Additionally, he reveals that Do-young was frantically searching for Myung-oh before he vanished. Jae-jun creates the impression that Do-young was furious with Myung-oh and attempting to track him down. The detective becomes intrigued but queries whether Myung-oh had connections to the drug trade. The situation has progressed from a missing person investigation to a criminal case. Meanwhile, at Yeonjin's workplace, Dong-eun meets up with her and suggests they grab coffee. Dong-eun offers Yeonjin a chance to redeem herself. She produces a report from 18 years ago and encourages Yeonjin to confess to the police. Yeonjin refuses, acting unafraid of Dong-eun and hurling insults. She claims that Dong-eun is bluffing since she has not contacted the police yet and threatens to kill her. Yeonjin is convinced that Dong-eun is not serious or she would have already reported her. Dong-eun stands firm and informs Yeonjin that she will exact a harsher revenge and has been working to ensure that Yeonjin pays for her actions. Yeonjin disregards the threats and suggests that Dong-eun should be thankful because she gave her a purpose as a teacher. Yeonjin takes credit for Dong-eun's teaching profession and claims that she did not ruin her life because it was always miserable. She finds it amusing that someone from a disadvantaged background believes they can find justice or karma. Dong-eun anticipates Yeonjin's contemptuous remarks and aims to offer her a final opportunity through Do-young's kindness. She collects her bag and exits the cafe. Additionally, the scene reveals that Yeonjin has been burning her assistant with an iron curl. Do-young remains preoccupied with Jae-jun's revelation as Ha-yi-sol's biological father. He is furious but apprehensive, particularly after learning that the police want to speak with him about Myung-oh's disappearance. Moreover, his secretary presents him with a USB flash drive that Myung-oh left behind. The flash drive contains evidence of Yeonjin's affair with Jae-jun, which he discards while driving home. When he arrives home and surveys their closet, he has an epiphany. While Dong-eun returns home and finds Yeo-young setting up the tent she had ordered, Yeo-young feels grateful that he took the effort to make the tent cozy and warm for her, which no one had ever done before. Later, Yeo-young also attempts to arrange a romantic dinner for them, but Dong-eun feels a little self-conscious when he offers to serenade her. Dong-eun expresses his gratitude to her for allowing him to stay with her and assures her that he will do his part in paying the household bills. Meanwhile, Sare, Yeonjin, Jae-jun, and Hae-jong gather to discuss Myung-oh's police case. Yeonjin stresses that this is not the time to fight amongst themselves but to unite and deal with Dong-eun. Yeonjin shares the incident report Dong-eun gave her, but Sare dismisses it and says that it is Yeonjin's problem. Sare then inquires if Myung-oh inquired about So-hee, and they all admit that he did. Hae-jong discloses that she almost revealed to him that it was Yeonjin who asked her to go to the abandoned building on the day So-hee died. Yeonjin reveals that they all agreed to harm So-hee because of her report that led to an investigation of them. Hae-jong is taken aback when Yeonjin suggests that everyone should take responsibility for it. Previously, Yeonjin lied and claimed that Jae-jun was with her during the time of the incident. Jae-jun recollects the advice given to him by the lawyer and considers the idea of blackmailing Yeonjin into divorcing Do-young by threatening to retract his statement. Sare is eager to come clean and admit that Yeonjin was responsible for So-hee's death. A flashback scene depicts Yeonjin pushing So-hee to her death while So-hee struggled to hold onto her name tag. After seeing her friends willing to turn against her, Yeonjin leaves in anger and contacts a corrupt detective, Shin Young-jun, who handled So-hee's case. Yeonjin inquires about the name tag, which Shin Young-jun had in his possession, having received it from an anonymous sender named Dong-eun. Shin Young-jun then gave the name tag to Yeonjin's mother, who kept it in a safety deposit box. At the time, Dong-eun had believed that sending the name tag would prompt the police to investigate the case, but unfortunately, the lead detective was on Yeonjin's mother's payroll. In the present, Dong-eun meets with the detective assigned to Myeonloa's case who doesn't believe Yeonjin could be involved. The detective warns Dong-eun to be cautious about making unfounded accusations, as she could be sued for defamation without evidence. After this warning, Dong-eun decides not to share any further information about Myeonlo. Later, Yeonjin meets with Shin Young-jun and assures him that her mother has destroyed the name tag. She also reveals that Dong-eun bought a car for her accomplice, Hyun-nam, who is dealing with an abusive husband. Hyun-nam's daughter was beaten by her husband, and Dong-eun is helping her get to the US to study. Dong-eun is working on the paperwork to ensure that Sun-ae is gone before they deal with her father. Meanwhile, Yeo-young tells his mother about his plans to help Dong-eun, the woman he loves. His mother promises to support him and advises him to keep his plans discreet. Dong-eun also meets with her former teacher, who helped her obtain So-hee's incident report. Dong-eun obtained the report from So-hee's mother in 2011, who pleaded with her to help find justice for her daughter. According to the report, So-hee was pregnant when she died. Dong-eun wonders who the father could be. Later, Dong-eun returns home and takes down her photos. She realizes that one photo is missing and remembers her phone conversation with Myeonlo, in which he claimed to be innocent. She reminds him that he is not innocent regarding So-hee and that he has blood on his hands. Dong-eun wonders if Myeonlo was responsible for So-hee's pregnancy. It is revealed that after his call to Dong-eun, Myeonlo made a call to Yeonjin, who accepted to meet him at 11 p.m. the night he disappeared. She was wearing green heels on this day as well. The episode ends with Hyun-nam being confronted by Yeonjin. In episode 2 of The Glory Season 2, Do-young pays a visit to Jae-jun's store and requests to see the fitting room. He is upset when he realizes that Yeonjin has visited the store with Jae-jun. It becomes clear that Yeonjin frequents the store a lot, as Do-young remembers the moment he had an epiphany in their walk-in closet. In another scene, Yeonjin confronts Hyun-nam and warns her about the consequences of following them around. Yeonjin suspects that Dong-eun is receiving assistance, and upon learning that she has 2 cars, she begins to investigate. Yeonjin gathers information about Hyun-nam and uses Sun-ae to make her do her bidding. Yeonjin discovers that Dong-eun and Hyun-nam are working together to kill different people. Dong-eun wants to kill Yeonjin, while Hyun-nam wants to kill her own husband. Yeonjin makes a deal with Hyun-nam to kill her husband in exchange for her help. Meanwhile, Dong-eun arrives at their usual meeting point only to find that both the car and Hyun-nam are missing. After her conversation with Yeonjin, Hyun-nam decided to take Sun-ae and escape. She hopes that they have lost their pursuers but doesn't know where they are headed. Her only goal is to keep Sun-ae safe. Although Sun-ae is curious about why they are leaving, she is thrilled to be running away with her cool mom. The following day, Dong-eun cannot reach Hyun-nam, and she is unable to leave work early due to a school meeting. During the meeting, she is given more work to prepare for the field trip, and she asks Hae-jong to find a way to meet with Yeonjin. Hae-jong warns that Yeonjin might not answer her call because of their argument, but Dong-eun threatens to ruin her wedding if she doesn't help. While at the meeting, another teacher calls Dong-eun and urges her to go to the parking lot. She is stunned to find her mother drunk and causing a scene, as Yeonjin had visited her and recruited her to help get Dong-eun fired. Dong-eun's mother had traced her daughter to Semyong a few months prior, but was kicked out by the landlord for causing trouble. Dong-eun brings her mother to her home and inquires about how she found her. To her surprise, she learns that her mother had returned last spring, but the landlady never informed her of the matter. Dong-eun suspects that Yeonjin had a hand in both her mother's return and Hyun-nam's disappearance. Meanwhile, Jae-jun is occupied with preparing a room for Hae-sol, and the contractor expresses concerns about the health implications of his beloved dog for his daughter. At his plastic surgery clinic, Yeonjin meets with Yeo-young, who who informs her that Dong-eun and her husband have been playing Go together and that Do-young bought her an expensive Hermes bag during their meeting. Hae-jong mentions that she hasn't turned on Yeonjin only because they are still friends and advises her to undergo a procedure to prevent her husband from cheating. However, Yeonjin declines Yeo-young's offer to perform the procedure and leaves. On the other side of town, Shin Young-jun discovers that one of his men threatened Dong-eun, the fake car accident incident, and he responds by assaulting the perpetrator. Later that evening, Dong-eun visits a convenience store near Hyunnam's location and discovers that Hyunnam has run away. She observes her inebriated husband quarreling with the store owner and departs hastily after receiving a message from Hyunnam. Hyunnam and Dong-eun meet in a parking lot, where Hyunnam confesses that Yeonjin has discovered her. Dong-eun had warned Hyunnam when she noticed that a photo of Hyunnam's husband was missing from her belongings. Hyunnam pleads with Dong-eun to protect Sunhae and assures her that she is still on their side. Hyunnam wants to deceive Yeonjin into thinking that she is on her side so that she can help Dong-eun from within. Dong-eun takes Sunhae to her former teacher and asks her to teach her English by watching American shows. Dong-eun promises Sunhae that she will protect her mother from her father. At the mansion, Do-young and Yeonjin argue about his decision to meet Hae-jong. Yeonjin accuses Do-young of taking Dong-eun's side, but Do-young defends himself by saying he is on their daughter's side. He points out that Yeonjin shows no remorse for her actions and asks her why she couldn't have waited for him to bring up the topic. As Christmas approaches, Jae-jun seeks the help of one of his store managers to find a gift for Hae-sol. The store manager informs him about Do-young's visit and shows him the CCTV footage. Jae-jun discovers that Yeonjin had asked the store manager to erase footage from October 19th, the day Myeonlo went missing, which raises suspicion. Dong-eun discovers that Yeo-young had spoken to the police regarding Myeonlo's disappearance. On the night he vanished, Myeonlo had visited the hospital morgue to inquire about So-hee. Yeo-young had instructed the morgue attendant to notify him if anyone came looking for So-hee. According to Yeo-young's testimony, he obtained Myeonlo's phone number and attempted to contact him, but Myeonlo reacted angrily and hung up abruptly. The detective becomes suspicious of Yeo-young's conduct but chooses not to voice his concerns. Upon returning to his office, Do-young realizes that Dong-eun had sent him the photo of them at the convenience store to seek Myeonlo's whereabouts. He arranges a private meeting with Dong-eun at a Seoul hotel. At the hotel, he is taken aback by the sight of Dong-eun's scar after she removes her coat. While Dong-eun meets with Do-young, Yeonjin goes to Yeo-young's clinic to receive filler treatments. During the procedure, before Yeonjin becomes sedated, Yeo-young asks her what she did to Myeonlo. After meeting Myeonlo at Jae-jun's store, Yeonjin recalls the events of October 19th. She quickly caught on to Myeonlo's blackmail scheme and destroyed his phone to prevent him from recording their conversation. Disappointed in him for bringing up Yoon So-hee's burial, she informed him that she expected more from him. However, Myeonlo claimed to have evidence of what happened that day in his pocket and threatened to report her the following day. When Yeonjin searched his pocket, she found only a condom, which Myeonlo laughed about. He demanded 1 billion won, but she slapped him. He continued to taunt her and even asked to sleep with her. Enraged, Yeonjin struck him with a whiskey bottle from the table. When he tried to stand up, she hit him again. After undergoing a procedure, Yeonjin woke up to find Yeo-young by her side. Innocently, he asked her how she had slept. Episode 3 of The Glory Season 2 opens with a flashback to October 19th, the day Myeonlo died. Realizing that his life is slipping away, Myeonlo clung to Yeonjin's leg and used his ring to leave a mark on her skin, which later became a scar. After his last breath, Yeonjin was left to handle the aftermath. Despite her experience in dealing with such situations, Yeonjin was still in shock. She started by cleaning the murder weapon, then changed out of her stained dress and put on a coat. Next, she called Shin Young-jun and his men to help dispose of the body. The men transported the body in a large blue container and tossed Myeonlo's phone into the Han River. They then took the body to Yongsan Funeral Home, where they removed any remaining evidence. Shin Young-jun suggested waiting for rain before burying Myeongo to contaminate any evidence further. Meanwhile, Yeon-jin was left to deal with erasing the CCTV footage and getting rid of her dress. Upon waking up, Yeon-jin startles and demands answers from Yeo-young about his identity and actions towards her. She insists on viewing CCTV footage, but the nurse explains that there are no cameras in the operating room and tries to soothe her. Despite Yeo-young's warning that the effects of anesthesia have not worn off, Yeon-jin rushes out with her shoes on. The nurse pursues her, while Yeo-young watches with an ominous expression before turning off the monitor. Yeon-jin eventually makes it home and attempts to calm down. Meanwhile, Do-young and Dong-eun discuss her desires, with Dong-eun requesting that he leave Yeon-jin. However, Do-young is firm in his decision to remain with his wife and unable to explain his reasoning. Dong-eun is not surprised by his response, and the conversation concludes with Do-young expressing surprise at her lack of aggression and asking for another meeting. Later on, Dong-eun awakens on her sofa to the sound of Yeo-young cooking dinner. They chat about their respective days, with Yeo-young recounting Yeon-jin's procedure and Dong-eun sharing details of her meeting with Do-young. The conversation shifts to Dong-eun's scar, and Yeo-young offers to treat it, which she declines, noting that it no longer causes her pain. The following day, Dong-eun receives a phone call informing her that Sunnae performed well in her U.S. Embassy interview and that she needs to send the agency fee and schedule her departure. Dong-eun sends a package to Hyun-nam, who is recuperating from another brutal attack by her husband. The package contains Sunnae's phone and a letter informing Hyun-nam that Sunnae has been accepted by a homestay family. Dong-eun encourages Hyun-nam to write a letter to the family and offers to translate it for her. The package also includes red lipstick, which Dong-eun thought would look good on Hyun-nam. At the same time, Yeon-jin's mother receives a call from an employee at Jeju General Hospital. The attendant from the morgue informs her that Yeo-young is searching for So-hee's body, which is being stored in the freezer for an unknown reason. The attendant is frightened because Myeongo has also come looking for So-hee's body. Meanwhile, Yeon-jin is anxious that she may have imagined Yeo-young's inquiry before falling asleep. She reflects on recent events outside the clinic when she sees Yeo-young, who approaches her and greets her. Yeo-young asks if she said anything during the procedure, and he informs her that she mentioned Myeongo's name. After deciding to go shopping, Yeon-jin sends a text message to Do-young informing him that she will prepare crab stew for dinner and advises him to eat at home, ensuring him that it will be safe. However, upon arriving home, she is surprised to find Do-young already eating. When she asks him why he didn't respond to her message, he calmly explains that his silence was his response. This infuriates Yeon-jin, who then confronts him about his relationship with Dong-eun and how she caught his attention. In response, Do-young explains that he was curious about Dong-eun after losing to her in a game of Go. Yeon-jin accuses him of cheating on her, but Do-young argues that it's unfair given that she's the one who has been having an affair with Jae-jun. Meanwhile, at school, Sunnae visits Dong-eun and expresses her gratitude for her help. Though she's sad that her mother and Dong-eun won't be able to accompany her to the airport, she understands the situation and promises to study hard and become a better person. They hug, and Dong-eun encourages her to strive for greatness. While at the airport, Hae-jong attempts to message Myeongo, suspecting he's arrived in Russia and curious if Dong-eun also caused him trouble. Recalling Myeongo's tablet, she seeks it out in Jae-jun's car, posing as his girlfriend to request the new driver to retrieve it for her. When the driver refuses, she contacts Jae-jun, who grants her permission to take the tablet. After returning home, Hae-jong sifts through the device and discovers a recording from the night Myeongo met with Yeon-jin. Meanwhile, Jae-jun wonders why Yeon-jin erased the CCTV footage on October 19 and resolves to obtain the restored footage, bribing a technician to have it within 3 days. Yeon-jin attempts to make a move on Hyun-nam's husband, but her accomplices inform her that Sunnae is nowhere to be found. Suspecting something is amiss, Yeon-jin instructs her henchmen to monitor Hyun-nam's husband while calling Sunnae's school for information. As Dong-eun prepares to depart the country, she meets with her friend Song-hee and asks for an introduction to a gang she used to know, ultimately employing their help to deal with Yeonjin's gang and facilitate Hyunnam's journey to the airport. Regrettably, just as Hyunnam is preparing to depart, Yeonjin arrives and intervenes. Yeonjin threatens to inform Haejong of Sunhae's whereabouts if Hyunnam doesn't comply with her demands. Hyunnam pleads with Yeonjin to leave Sunhae alone, even dropping to her knees. Yeonjin insists that Hyunnam divulge information regarding Dong-eun's other accomplices. Hyunnam admits that she is only aware of a male associate, but is uncertain about his identity or role. Yeonjin warns that if Hyunnam fails to fulfill her promise, Sunhae will be forcibly returned. Before leaving, Yeonjin informs Hyunnam that she will not provide any funds for her husband's gambling, so he will be home early to discipline her. However, Hyunnam is unable to reach the airport as her husband beats her severely. Despite this, she composes a letter to her guardians, requesting that they ensure Sunhae's happiness. Dong-eun witnesses Sunhae's departure and expresses sorrow that Hyunnam was unable to make it. Yeo-young tries to comfort Dong-eun. Later, Sunhae sends a message to her mother, informing her that she arrived safely in the United States and will wait for her. Upon her husband's return, Hyunnam hides her phone, preventing her from receiving Dong-eun's call. Her husband discovers a significant amount of money in her purse and begins to physically assault her. She lies, claiming that a stranger asked to use her phone to send a message, but she became frightened after reading it. Driven by avarice, her husband demands to see the message. After her disturbing conversation with the morgue attendant, Yeonjin's mother contacts Shin Young-jun to investigate Yeo-young's interest in So-hee's murder. Shin Young-jun seeks legal advice to challenge Ju General Hospital for freezing a corpse. Meanwhile, Yeo-young is about to purchase an abandoned funeral home and is in the final stages of completing the transfer. Later, Yeonjin's mother receives a text message from an anonymous sender who accuses Yeonjin of murder. It turns out that the message was sent by Hyunnam's spouse. At the same time, Dong-eun's mother contacts the parents of the student her daughter teaches, causing further trouble. While Dong-eun and Yeo-young play go at home, Hyunnam cooks with newfound hope. Haejong discovers something on Myeonloa's tablet, and Shin Young-jun pays to store Myeonloa's body at a funeral home. He plans to use the body as evidence to extort money from Yeonjin. While on a drive, Dong-eun inquires of Yeo-young why he had never mentioned knowing Myeonlo and if he believed she was responsible for his death. Yeo-young explains that as an executioner, he doesn't question those in power and that he is only there to carry out her requests, regardless of her past actions or desires. Dong-eun is taken aback by Yeo-young's response and questions their relationship, asking why he would be willing to do such things for her. Yeo-young reminds her that during a difficult period in his life, he felt she was his savior when he tutored her, and he has since chosen to be her partner in crime. Despite Dong-eun's disbelief, they continue their drive, failing to notice Shin Young-jun's car approaching from the funeral home. In episode 4 of The Glory Season 2, Shin Young-jun is seen playing indoors with a friend while Dong-eun recalls her conversation with Hyunnam about a corrupt detective's influence. Hyunnam had introduced Dong-eun to a suspicious funeral home, which they had snuck into, and where she had expressed concerns over illegal activities happening due to the high electricity consumption. Later, Dong-eun confides in Yeo-young about her suspicions that Myeonlo might be hidden in the funeral home. She had conducted research and discovered that the funeral home had been on sale for the past 3 years and was now being managed by a lottery shop owner. Yeo-young offers to assist her in confirming her suspicions. Their fears are validated when they purchase the funeral home, and the lottery shop owner expresses surprise that they have no intentions of involving the police. Meanwhile, Dong-eun and Yeo-young are shocked to discover that Shin Young-jun is preserving Myeonloa's body. Dong-eun believes that Shin Young-jun is using the body as leverage for himself, and that it is not a coincidence that he is preserving it. According to Dong-eun, luck has never been on her side, as she expressed to Yeo-young. In an attempt to make up for it, Yeo-young suggested getting Yeonjin to his clinic to get all the facts. This led to Haijong being used to lure Yenjin to the clinic, where Yeoyoung took a sample from her leg wound while she was under anesthesia. Later on, Hyunnam meets with Yenjin and tells her about a young, accomplished surgeon who is helping Donghoon and runs a clinic in Semyong. Yenjin panics upon realizing that Hyunnam is referring to Yeoyoung, whose family owns Ju General Hospital. This causes her to start seeing the ghost of So-hee. Meanwhile, Yenjin's mom is terrified as she continues to receive messages about Yenjin's alleged murderous activities. She seeks help from Shin Young-jun after being ignored by him on the phone and complains about the threatening messages she's been receiving. Shin Young-jun informs her that he has already located and shared all the personal information of the culprit. She chides him for not taking care of the matter properly, to which he responds that she's going too far and reminds her who is paying him. This causes Shin Young-jun to feel dissatisfied, and he admits that he made a mistake assuming they were friends, as they are only partners in crime, before he leaves. Meanwhile, Donghoon delivers a school newsletter to Jae-jun, which contains a USB with pictures of Ha Yi-sol taken by Mr. Chu. Upon seeing the photos, Jae-jun becomes enraged and rushes to the school. At the school, Donghoon stops Mr. Chu from taking more pictures of the girls and shows him the project he assigned her to handle. She has been annoyed by Mr. Chu for a while and has been plotting how to get rid of him. Jae-jun arrives and attacks Mr. Chu with his camera in the staff room, beating him severely until Ha Yi-sol sees him. Yi-sol calls her father and reports the incident at school. The police arrive and Jae-jun is taken into custody. His lawyer tries to calm him down and get him to accept a settlement, but Do-young also arrives with his lawyer to help settle the case against Jae-jun's wishes. After leaving the police station, Jae-hoon insists on keeping tabs on the photo case, but Do-young reminds him that he has no authority. Jae-hoon then drops a bombshell by revealing that he is the biological father of Ha Yi-sol. A physical altercation ensues, and Do-young emerges victorious before the lawyers step in. Do-young warns Jae-hoon never to approach his daughter again. Meanwhile, Hyunnam goes shopping with her husband and informs him that Yenjin has killed 2 people. He responds with enthusiasm and rushes out to purchase mangoes, oblivious to 2 of Shin Young-jun's men waiting outside, plotting his accidental demise. In another part of town, Donghoon meets with the gang that Song-hee introduced her to and compensates them for their assistance in dealing with Yenjin's men. She also procures drugs from them. Sare, on the other hand, is struggling with drug addiction, and her parents discover her continued use. Her father, a pastor, is concerned about his reputation and is exasperated with his daughter's behavior. Another frustrated parent is Park Sang-im, after learning the police have filed a report about the hospital concerning So-hee's body. In a flashback, we see So-hee's mom refusing to have a funeral so that she can get justice for her daughter. Yeoyoung's dad saw the mom struggle and believed her when she said So-hee didn't commit suicide. This is why he agreed to store the body in the freezer and preserve it. He had hoped things would be handled quickly and the truth will be revealed. Unfortunately, 18 years later and the truth was still hidden and he is dead, can't help with the civil complaint being lodged against the hospital. Luckily, his wife is an amazing woman and she tells of the policeman sent by Shin Young-jun to make sure the body is released from the freezer. Unlike Yeoyoung's mom, Donghoon's mom is set on making her daughter's life miserable. She keeps texting Yeoyoung to meet her, but he arrives at the set hotel and watches her before leaving. He simply pays her bills and leaves with no introduction. Concurrently, Yenjin arrives home and finds Yi-sol's driver at home and Do-young waiting for her inside. He is on the phone with his lawyer who informs him that they have already requested a restraining order against Jae-jun. She demands to know why Yi-sol left school early and went to her grandmother's. Do-young tries to avoid an argument but she insists they talk. He informs her about the incident with Jae-hoon at school, assuring her that he knows all her secrets and has been withholding information. He makes it clear that Yi-sol is still his daughter, despite her not being biologically related to him. Yeonjin explains that she was attempting to protect their family, but he belittles her and questions the extent of her protection through lies, calling her selfish. He storms out, leaving Yeonjin distraught on the floor. She receives a call from a parent about a voting meeting to remove a teacher involved in a bribery scandal but lies about being at work and unable to attend. Dong-eun, the teacher in question, is hurt by her mother's actions and confronts her, leading to a physical altercation that leaves Dong-eun with facial scars. She destroys her mother's belongings and locks herself in a car, crying. Jae-hoon arrives, assuming Dong-eun informed Do-young and sent him to the police station. Yeo-young nearly hits Jae-hoon with her car while arriving, and he leaves her his contact information before departing. This allows Dong-eun to leave and return home, where she stays in her tent while Yeo-young worries about her well-being. Dong-eun informs him that she is okay and inquires why he is pacing outside the tent. He responds that he wants to assure her of his presence and support. Dong-eun asks how he managed to locate her, to which he reveals that her mother sent him a text message. Dong-eun continues to cry uncontrollably, and he urges her to rest. The following day, Dong-eun attends church and meets with the men she hired. They discreetly exchange a phone that supposedly contains photos that she requested. From a distance, Hyun-nam watches as Yeonjin updates her on Dong-eun's activities. Yeonjin discloses that Dong-eun is at Sare's parents' church. Using the phone, Dong-eun sends Sare a photo of the drugs she planted in the church and invites her to the Garden of Eden. Unable to resist, Sare goes to the church's underground basement and ingests the drug. Unbeknownst to her, Dong-eun records her and shares the footage with the churchgoers. Upon seeing the video, one by one, people begin to leave the church. As a result of the drugs, Sare experiences hallucinations, believing that the snake in the Garden of Eden's illustrations is Myung-oh and recalling the day she performed fellatio on him. This leads her to masturbate, and people take pictures of her. Dong-eun watches as the situation unfolds but is interrupted by Yeonjin. Dong-eun informs her that this aspect of her revenge required a lot of effort and inquires if Yeonjin enjoyed it. Yeonjin is informed by Dong-eun that Sare is a first-time offender and will soon be released, leaving Dong-eun confident that they cannot be beaten. Yeonjin is advised by Dong-eun to make an effort not to get caught. While they converse, Song-hee posts a story online exposing Yeonjin for school bullying, and Yeonjin receives notifications of her past misdeeds on her phone. In response, Dong-eun cautions Yeonjin that Sare may escape punishment for her wrongdoing, but Yeonjin herself might not be as fortunate. Dong-eun refers to Yeonjin as a murderer, and when Yeonjin asks for proof, Dong-eun responds with a sarcastic laugh, indicating that she may have evidence. In Episode 5 of The Glory Season 2, the scandal involving Sare and Yeonjin causes a stir on social media. Yeonjin seeks refuge at a shaman's place, but Do-young rushes to pick her up. Meanwhile, Sare attempts to flee but ends up getting arrested. Dong-eun's injury is treated by Yeo-young, who also comments on the scandal. When asked about Dong-eun's mom, Yeo-young tries to change the topic. Yeonjin is taken to meet with lawyers by Do-young, but she refuses to admit the truth and requests that the matter be dropped. Sare, on the other hand, tries to exert pressure on her dad and lawyers to handle her drug case expeditiously. Jae-joon receives bad news from the technician who failed to retrieve any footage from the hard drive. Yeonjin had replaced the hard drive instead of erasing the footage. Fortunately, Hae-jong contacts Jae-joon and shows him the recording she found on Myung-oh's phone. It was realized that Yeonjin had been the last person to speak to Myung-oh, and it was likely that she had killed him while in Jae-joon's store. Upon this revelation, Jae-joon changed his mind about his relationship with Yeonjin and proposed to Hae-jong, which was something she had always wanted. She eagerly accepted and stated that she had no reservations about raising Yi-sol as her own daughter. Meanwhile, Hyun-nam continued to work covertly with Dong-eun, who was already plotting to eliminate her husband. Despite her husband's recent calm demeanor as he continued to blackmail Yeonjin's mother, he made sure to stop by her house and ensure that she saw him, further driving her to the brink. Dong-eun also met with Jaeyoung-ran, the manager of Jae-jun's store and another victim of the bullying gang, and requested that she not interfere with her plans. On the other hand, Yeo-young met with a friend and began taking steps towards his revenge plan against the man who killed his father. He later encountered Do-young at the Go Play Center and played a game, during which Do-young noticed that Yeo-young played similarly to Dong-eun. After Hyun-nam informs Yeon-jin about Hae-jong moving in with Jae-jun, Yeon-jin rushes to Jae-jun's house and confronts Hae-jong, who is now engaged to Jae-jun and has broken off her wedding to another wealthy man. Yeon-jin accuses Hae-jong of being in cahoots with Dong-eun and demands to know what else Dong-eun has asked her to do. Hae-jong asks Yeon-jin to leave and reveals that there is a significant reason why Jae-jun has been avoiding her. Later, Hae-jong visits Sare in jail and informs her that Yeon-jin betrayed her by leaking information about her tax fraud to cover up her bullying scandal. Sare is furious and decides to take action against Yeon-jin. Meanwhile, Dong-eun pays her landlady a visit and learns that her mother has been causing trouble. The landlady tells her that she never revealed her mother's first visit because Dong-eun deserves to have at least one person on her side. When Dong-eun returns to Yeo-young's place, she accidentally stumbles upon Yang Cheon's letters, which reveal how he is tormenting and ridiculing Yeo-young, leaving Dong-eun heartbroken. While attempting to secure a position as a medical officer at Yang Cheon's prison, Yeo-young encounters Yang Cheon and vows to seek revenge against him for killing his father. Yeo-young remains fixated on the fact that Yang Cheon murdered his father for amusement. Meanwhile, Shin Young-jun receives distressing news from the lottery store owner, who informs him that the funeral home has been sold. The store owner implores Shin Young-jun to handle Myung-noa's body before it is discovered. Later, the lottery store owner contacts Yeo-young and reveals that he has already spoken with Shin Young-jun. Yeo-young requests that the store owner keep him informed if there are any attempts to relocate the body. Upon returning home, Yeo-young finds that Dong-eun has prepared a meal for him, which moves him deeply. When she inquires about his day, Yeo-young responds evasively, stating only that he traveled a long distance. Dong-eun decides not to probe further, as she already knows he visited Yang Cheon. She then asks if their circumstances had been different, would anything have changed between them? Yeo-young replies that everything would have remained the same, as he would have still fallen in love with her. He is taken aback when she embraces him. After quitting her job following a scandal involving her mother, Dong-eun apologizes to Yi-sol before calling her mother and demanding that she be gone before she arrives. However, when she arrives at her mother's place, she finds her drunk and entertaining men. Her mother accuses her of trying to steal her boyfriend and wishes she had never given birth to her, but Dong-eun reminds her that she was the one who betrayed her. The argument escalates and her mother intentionally starts a fire. The detective in charge of Myung-noa's case visits Yeon-jin, who denies any knowledge of the matter. Later, she meets with Shin Young-jun, who attempts to blackmail her for more money. He reveals that he still has Myung-noa's body and plans to retire early and move to Hawaii. Yeon-jin is shocked that he expects her to fund his retirement and asks why. He tells her that he never buried Myung-noa's body. While they are talking, the police are alerted to the discovery of a body, which is later identified as Myung-no. Yeon-jin requests that Shin Young-jun take her to the funeral home where the body is, but they arrive too late as the body had already been moved. The police are now investigating the murder of Myung-no. In the beginning of episode 6 of The Glory Season 2, Dong-eun's hired men leave Myung-noa's body outside the building and an anonymous tip is made to the police, prompting them to arrive and start collecting evidence. On the other hand, Shin Young-jun cannot contact the lottery store owner, and Myung-noa's body is nowhere to be found. Later, Yeon-jin receives a call from Hae-jong informing her that Myung-no has been found dead, causing her to lose control and smash her handbag against the funeral home drawers. Realizing that he might be in trouble, Shin Young-jun decides to sell the motel and clean out his safe to prepare to run away. He sends his wife away, but he gets a call from Yeon-jin's mother, who wants to meet with him one last time before he leaves the country. Meanwhile, Yeo-young retrieves the video of Dong-eun's mother burning down the house intentionally and uses it to admit her to a rehab facility. Dong-eun is pleased that she can finally live without her mother interfering in her life. Yeo-young works to restore the room and runs into the landlady, who allows her to continue the work as Dong-eun once saved his life. Sare is released on bail and returns home to search for her old phone, which contains videos of Yeon-jin bullying So-hee for wearing the same clothes as her. Sare plans revenge on Yeon-jin while Do-young reads online accusations about his wife and wants to meet with Dong-eun to confirm if Yeon-jin did bully So-hee. Dong-eun gives him So-hee's details and advises him to meet with her mother. Do-young's lawyers warn him to think carefully about being linked to Yeon-jin when more details of the case are revealed. Yeon-jin meets with Jae-jun and asks him to save her, revealing what she did to Myeon-oh and So-hee. She set So-hee on fire before throwing her off a building and called her mother and a detective for help. Yeon-jin seeks Jae-jun's help as the mother of his child, and he promises to save her. The situation involving these two individuals is upsetting. Jae-jun later consults with his lawyer about stopping an autopsy but is informed that it is not feasible. He contacts Do-young and arranges to meet with him. During the meeting, Jae-jun asks Do-young to provide an alibi for Yeon-jin, reminding him that he did the same for her in the past. He also uses Yi-sol to threaten Do-young, warning him that her reputation will be tarnished if her mother is known as a murderer. After speaking with his lawyer, Do-young is cautious about his next move and arranges for Seyal to attend a school abroad. Following her meeting with Jae-jun, Yeon-jin returns home to find Sare waiting for her. Sare accuses Yeon-jin of betrayal, and as they converse, Yeon-jin realizes that she left behind some evidence at the funeral home. Meanwhile, Dong-eun and Yeo-young continue to warm our hearts with their sweet interactions, with Dong-eun admitting that she still has her guard up, but Yeo-young keeps breaking down her walls. During the night, Hyun-nam's husband receives a call from the shaman asking to meet and collect his payment of 1 billion won, causing him to leave in excitement and telling Hyun-nam not to wait for him. However, the shaman is setting him up, and Yeon-jin's mother hits him with her car, pretending it was an accident. She brings along Shin Young-jun as a witness, and he becomes angry when he realizes her plan but goes along with it to avoid consequences. Meanwhile, Dong-eun observes from a distance and approaches the shaman. Yeon-jin decides to use the cover of the night to sneak into the funeral home and retrieve evidence she left behind, but she is caught by Yeo-young, who returns her forgotten handbag piece and advises her to drive safely. Yeon-jin then receives a message from her mom, who is at the police station and asks her to come. At the station, Yeon-jin's mom and Shin Young-jun give their statements, and the police ask her to settle with the victim's family as they consider the case a simple accident with no evidence suggesting otherwise. Dong-eun has a meeting with the detective assigned to Myeon-oh's case, during which he interviews her. Although the detective suspects Dong-eun of providing Myeon-oh with information, he acknowledges that it is not against the law. Dong-eun urges the detective to investigate the case and trust her version of events. Additionally, she brings up the case of So-hee and requests that the detective examine the DNA on a lighter found near the location of So-hee's death. Yeon-jin picks up her mother and drives to the shaman's place, where a ritual is performed on their behalf. As planned, the shaman pretends to be possessed by So-hee's spirit. Upon hearing news of Hyun-nam's husband being the man her mother killed, Yeon-jin begins to spiral and recall the details leading to So-hee's death. Dong-eun watches from afar, having left Yeo-young at home. Yeo-young receives a message regarding a job interview scheduled at the prison. Hyun-nam visits the morgue and identifies her husband's body. She plays the role of a grieving wife, and no one suspects her involvement in the events that led to his death. The 7th episode of Season 2 of The Glory begins with Dong-eun recalling how she discovered Yeon-jin's name tag after the death of So-hee. In the present, Dong-eun witnesses a shaman's performance of being possessed by So-hee's spirit, which becomes more intriguing when Yeon-jin panics and the shaman appears to faint due to a curse. Everyone, except Dong-eun, runs away in fear, and Yeon-jin's mother awakens abruptly from her sleep at the shaman's location. Later, Yenjin confronts Hyennam, accusing her of orchestrating her husband's murder with the help of Yenjin's mother. Hyennam slaps Yenjin twice and warns her not to cause any more trouble. She challenges Yenjin's morality by questioning how she can threaten someone's child, and declares that she is no longer afraid of her and will retaliate if provoked. Do-young observes this altercation and pays the men who were following Hyennam. He informs them that their boss Shin Young-jun is preparing to flee the country. The men depart to handle their boss, while Do-young proposes to Yenjin that she apologize to So-hee's family and accept her punishment. He informs her that if she gracefully accepts her punishment, he will remain married to her. However, if she chooses otherwise, their marriage will be over. Yenjin unsurprisingly refuses to express regret or apologize for her actions. She believes that her marriage with Do-young was over as soon as he played go with Dong-eun. Do-young acknowledges her stance and informs her that he has made up his mind. He contacts his attorney and instructs them to proceed as planned. The next day, news of their divorce becomes the talk of the town. The media speculates whether the bullying scandal was the cause of their separation. Yeo-young jokes about how the divorce might not bode well for Do-young, while Jae-jun frets over the possible impact on his chances of gaining Yi-sol's custody. Meanwhile, Hae-jong worries that Jae-jun might reconcile with Yenjin. Sare, on the other hand, is indifferent to the situation and gets into a quarrel with Hae-jong. She asserts that Hae-jong is nothing more than a toy and demands that she leave so that she can focus on uploading the bullying videos featuring Yenjin. Conversely, while holding a service for her husband at sea, Hyennam is approached by Yenjin's mother and her lawyer who offer to settle her husband's case. Despite the offer being doubled, Hyennam refuses to settle. Yenjin's mother instructs the lawyer to ensure that Hyennam accepts the offer. Later, Dong-eun meets with Yenjin's mother and asks for the name tag she received from Shin Young-jun. Despite Yenjin's mother being shocked at the revelation of their shared history, Dong-eun expresses her lack of concern for Yenjin's mother's past actions. She gives her phone number to Yenjin's mother, who is left to choose between pretending to love her daughter or saving herself. In another sequence of events, Sare uploads a video showing Yenjin bullying So-hee and making death threats. Sare's boss confronts her and she admits to the bullying but denies any involvement in a murder. She resigns from her job and returns home where she tries to keep her daughter, Yi-sol, from seeing the scandal. However, Yi-sol has already witnessed everything and expresses her disappointment in her mother's behavior. Yi-sol is struggling in school due to the scandal. The following day, Yenjin holds a press conference to refute all accusations against her and announces her plan to sue her accusers. She points out that So-hee was pregnant when she died and claims that So-hee took her own life because she couldn't handle the pregnancy. Yenjin portrays herself as a victim and then leaves for Myeong-noa's funeral. Meanwhile, the detective in charge of Myeong-noa's case continues to search for more evidence, as advised by Dong-eun. During Myeong-noa's funeral, things spiral out of control when Hae-jong posts a video of Sare and Myeong-no sleeping together online. Initially, Sare thinks that Yenjin is responsible for the video, but she soon realizes that Hae-jong is behind it all. In a fit of rage, Sare stabs Hae-jong in the throat with a pen that she was using to tie her hair. The public is stunned by the chaos that unfolds at the funeral, including the fight between Yenjin and Sare. So-hee's mother also makes an appearance and throws food at Myeong-noa's picture. The police arrive to arrest Sare, and Hae-jong is taken to the hospital for treatment. Jae-jun visits Yeo-young's clinic after leaving the funeral and inquires about So-hee's pregnancy, which surprises him. He expresses his concerns about the potential outcome of an autopsy if the police conduct one. After he departs, Yeo-young contacts Dong-eun and informs him of a mistake they made earlier. It was Jae-jun who impregnated So-hee, not Myeong-no. Jae-jun arranges a meeting between Do-young's mother and Yenjin in his office. He informs her that Yi-sol is not biologically related to her and confesses that he is the father. Jae-jun asks her to disown Yi-sol so that he can take custody of her. However, Do-young's mother becomes angry and trashes his office. She attempts to contact her son, but he ignores her calls. Meanwhile, Do-young plans to transfer Yi-sol to another school abroad and terminates her current nanny. Yi-sol is upset and apologizes to her father, but he comforts her and reassures her that it is not her fault. Dong-eun visits Ju General Hospital and discovers that Do-young paid all of So-hee's medical expenses. As she leaves, Yeo-young's mother observes her quietly. Later, Dong-eun meets with Hyun-nam and bids her farewell as their contract comes to an end. She wishes Hyun-nam the best in her future endeavors. Dong-eun hopes that she won't run into Hyun-nam again and wishes for her to have a happy life. Hyun-nam reciprocates the sentiment and offers boiled eggs as a parting gift. Dong-eun reflects on what Hyun-nam may have been like before life's hardships took their toll and tries to recall her own happier days before Yeonjin entered her life. Later, Dong-eun eats the boiled eggs given to her by Hyun-nam and reminisces about her first encounter with her landlady during her younger years while working at the laundry. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Hae-jong's life is saved by the doctors, but her vocal cord cannot be salvaged. Jae-jun learns that she will likely be mute for the rest of her life and promptly breaks up with her, asking if he should send over her belongings. This leaves Hae-jong feeling angry and heartbroken. In other news, Sare's father is arrested for embezzling church funds as Jae-jun leaves the hospital. Dong-eun also happens to be at the hospital and receives a call from Yeo-young congratulating her on exacting revenge on Sare and Hae-jong. Through their conversation, it is revealed that they obtained Myeon-loa's body and planted Yeonjin's DNA under his nails, despite Shin Young-jun's attempts to clean all evidence from the body. Dong-eun inquires of Yeon-young about his whereabouts and he responds by saying that he is going far, on his way to a job interview as a medical officer in prison. Young Cheon reveals to Yeon-young the reason behind killing his father and blames him for it. Apparently, Young Cheon became furious that the doctor was showing concern for his son, prompting him to commit the crime. Regrettably, Yeon-young is not hired for the job, and he drives back home crying, mulling over Young Cheon's accusations. He visits his mother, who notices that he has been weeping, but he denies it. He asks his mother to take him for lunch, and she consents. At the same time, the detective receives the DNA report, indicating that the DNA found on Myeon-loa's body matches the one found on the lighter at So-hee's crime scene. Consequently, they gather all the individuals involved to obtain DNA samples. Meanwhile, Dong-eun receives a text from Yeonjin, informing her that she has sent her name tag to the police. Yeonjin invites Dong-eun to meet her, intending to witness her mother's betrayal. Yeonjin's mother refuses to risk going to prison for failing to control Dong-eun. Dong-eun is devastated by the mother-daughter betrayal and tells Yeonjin that her mother is no different from her. They both betray their children for their selfish desires. Yeonjin starts sobbing, asking her mother why she betrayed her. As Dong-eun drives back home, she receives a call from Song-hee, informing her that So-hee's mother has fainted, and they are rushing her to the hospital. Upon reaching the hospital, Dong-eun discovers that Yeo-young is So-hee's mother's legal guardian. She meets Yeo-young at the hospital and asks him how long he has known about So-hee and that she will require his assistance. The 8th episode of The Glory Season 2 commences with Yeo-young asking Dong-eun if he always anticipated her seeking his aid. Dong-eun confirms this and reveals that he has been aware of So-hee's corpse being in the freezer for some time. He further explains that he had trailed Dong-eun since they first met in the hospital in 2011, and though Dong-eun believed she was using him, he was content with his role as her executioner. When Dong-eun abruptly left after their Go lesson, Yeo-young was taken aback and inquired why. Dong-eun admits that after learning about what happened to Yeo-young's father from So-hee's mother, she felt guilty for focusing solely on her pain and left. Yeo-young was relieved to hear this, as he had previously worried that she had abandoned him because he wasn't her type. Despite the gravity of the situation, Yeo-young still manages to crack a joke and asks Dong-eun to use him until the end unless it's for love, to which she agrees. Later on, Dong-eun visits Hae-jong, who is now mute following Sare's attack. Donghoon asks Haejong if she wants to take revenge on Jaejun and thanks her for helping her deal with Sare and Yeonjin. Haejong leaves the hospital and heads over to Jaejun's place to collect her belongings. Jaejun allows her to enter and pack her things. During this period, Haejong takes the decision to switch Jaejun's glaucoma medicine based on Donghoon's instructions, giving her the opportunity to seek revenge against him. Although Donghoon leaves the final decision up to Haejong, Jaejun's rude behavior towards her seals his fate, and she willingly goes ahead with the plan. Meanwhile, Shin Youngjun faces a similar fate when he is attacked and killed by his men after they discover he plans to leave them to take the blame for their criminal actions. Yeonjin, on the other hand, falls into a state of depression after receiving a video of Myeonloa's murder. When she goes to Jaejun's store to investigate, she is arrested as the police have marked the fitting room as a crime scene and are collecting DNA evidence. Donghoon is revealed to be the one who sent Yeonjin the video and tipped off the police anonymously. Elsewhere, Jaejun attempts to reconnect with his daughter Yi-sol, but mistakes another girl for her and learns that she has been transferred to a school abroad. Frustrated and unable to reach Do-young, he confronts Donghoon and demands answers, driving to the meeting spot with his eyesight worsening due to the eye drops Haejong switched. This leads to an accident that he couldn't avoid. While meeting with a detective, Donghoon is informed of his suspicions regarding the cause of Hyunnam's husband's death. The detective is convinced that Yeonjin's mother killed him because of blackmail, and that Donghoon was somehow involved, although he lacks evidence to support his claim. However, Donghoon did not break any laws. Yeonjin's mother is ultimately found by the police while attempting to settle the case with Hyunnam, and she is arrested and charged with the murder of Hyunnam's husband. Donghoon is grateful to the detective for listening to her anonymous tip and following through on the investigation. The detective apologizes for the delay in justice. Meanwhile, Yeonjin is in prison and signs her divorce settlement while Do-young advises her to hire a good lawyer. Yeonjin is upset that Do-young delivered the papers in person and asks him where he is going. He tells her they will be going to the UK and ignores her request to write to Yi-sol. On another note, Hyunnam gifts Song-hee with the car she received from Donghoon and delivers money to Donghoon's former teacher as per her request. Donghoon calls Yeo-young and asks him to go to the ocean with her. They have a good time as Yeo-young sings to her and they stop by a lighthouse to get drunk. Unfortunately, Donghoon calls Yeo-young to say goodbye while he is buying more beer, and he is unable to locate her when he returns. Donghoon visits Yeonjin and expresses her happiness over Yeonjin's revenge being accomplished. She tells Yeonjin that she wants her to remember and regret her life every day until the end. In response, Yeonjin says that she has nothing to regret. In a flashback, we discover that Jaeyoung-ran was present when Myeonlo was killed and he had asked for her help. Jaeyoung-ran, who was scared and traumatized by Myeonlo's repeated assaults, gave him the final blow. She confessed everything to Donghoon via text message and asked for her help. Donghoon promises to help Jaeyoung-ran but advises her to stop dwelling on the past. She leaves Yeonjin with harsh words, hoping that she will live a horrible life in prison and go through hell. Donghoon refuses to disclose what truly happened to Myeonlo, which drives Yeonjin crazy, and she vows to kill Donghoon. Donghoon is eventually released from prison and burns all the photos she had, bidding farewell to her past. She wishes nothing but a painful life for her enemies and tries to commit suicide at the abandoned building where So-hee died. However, Yeo-young's mother stops her and asks for her help in saving her son. She pleads with Donghoon not to take her own life as it would also mean killing Yeo-young. Yeo-young's mother acknowledges Donghoon's difficult experiences but believes that suicide is not the solution. She urges Donghoon to save Yeo-young from the torment he is enduring at the hands of Kang Young-cheon, who expresses no remorse for killing his father in letters to Yeo-young. Donghoon decides to live and spend 6 months at a monk monastery, where she befriends a judge and asks for Young-cheon to be transferred to a stricter prison. During this time, Yeo-young misses Donghoon and is surprised when she returns home. He accuses her of being cruel for leaving him, but she reveals that she left because of love, not revenge. She offers to help him and promises to be his executioner, to which they share a passionate kiss. After returning home, Dong-eun remembers how she once saved her landlady's life when the woman had the same intentions as her after losing her son. She sends the landlady a letter expressing her gratitude for saving her life on that difficult day. After the accident, Dong-eun and Yeo-young resume their lives together and speculate about what happened to Jae-jun. It is revealed that despite surviving the car crash, Jae-jun was later thrown off a building by Do-young and buried in cement, as Do-young fled the country with Yi-sol. Dong-eun decides to volunteer as a teacher at Jisan prison, where Yang Cheon has been transferred. She contacts Hyun-nam, who has been running a small restaurant and missing her daughter, and offers her a job as an assistant. Meanwhile, Yeo-young obtains a position as a medical officer at the prison, and uses his influence to help another inmate's sister receive treatment. In exchange, the inmate agrees to help Yeo-young with his plans for Yang Cheon. The episode concludes with Dong-eun paying a visit to So-hee's grave, before setting off with Yeo-young to Jisan prison. They express their love for each other, and prepare to take revenge.